Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me. Why is this window? There we go. Now we got the window right. Anyway, folks, as you can see from the video description, I originally just had Jennifer's name up. It is Jennifer and Jonathan Williams, which is weird because when Jason said their names last night or last week, I thought he was going to say he was talking about me. And I'm like, I'm not married to Jennifer. This is weird. Anyway, so as you can see, we're going to update the story that Jason and I touched on last week. They're going to be able to give us a whole lot more information. But before we start the Freedom Talk, let me start the recording and we'll jump right in.
In the restaurant of life, we're putting freedom back on the menu. It's the Missouri Liberty Report with John Williams, working with grassroots organizations and legislatures to make Missouri the freest state in the nation. Let freedom ring.
All right, folks, and we're back with another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Thanks so much for joining me. To all of those in the YouTube, Rumble, radio, and podcast, thank you for your continued support. I am just supremely excited to have Jonathan and Jennifer Williams on with me to discuss these horrific things that have happened to the Hernandez family in Georgia. If you were around last week, you heard Jason and I touch on this, but we definitely want to get Jennifer and Jonathan's information now because they can elaborate much more. So Jennifer and Jonathan, good evening to you. It's great to see you.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Absolutely. I like I said, I'm so pleased that we got to follow up with you the week after Jason was on because that's just a tremendous help. So I guess before we go any farther, can you give everybody give everybody a rundown on your background and things of that nature, so everybody kind of knows a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll jump right into the subject matter at hand.
Sure. So Jonathan and I have been married almost 16 years, and we have been foster parents off and on for 13 years. We have 5 children, and we have adopted 3 children. And we've just loved it. We've enjoyed it here in Georgia. Foster care is a really unique ministry for us. And if you want me to start out with how we met the Hernandez family, I can do that.
Absolutely. That'd be great.
So there's something with foster care called respite, and it just means a shorter time frame that the kids are going to stay with you, so you can have kids long term and you can have short term. It can be a few hours, it can be a weekend, it can be a week. And we were doing respite the last 2 years, and we got a call for 2 little girls this past August, and they were 4 months and 3 years old, and it was for 5 nights. And when they arrived at our home, transporter brought them, just pretty typical. And you don't get a lot of information about kids when they're brought to your home. It depends on the DFACS caseworker, and DFACS is CPS here in Georgia. Stands for the Department of Family and Children's Services. And so some caseworkers will give you a lot of information, and some caseworkers don't give you much information. We didn't really have anything on Emma and Aria when they arrived in our home. I got to talk to the foster mom a little bit over the phone once they arrived, just to figure out what their schedules were like, what they like to eat, how they best went to sleep, things like that. When I guess it was the next full day, because they came in the evening time, that we started just noticing some things with Emma that just seemed different, just the way she held herself. She was 4 months old, so just kind of looking at her overall position when she would sit, she was kind of lazy with her joints. And it was Jonathan who noticed the whites of her eyes had like a bluish and gray tint to them. And when I gave her a bath, I could see that the top of her head was a little soft. It was like sloped. And I thought it was weird because normally if you have a medically fragile child or a child with any medical needs, they'll let you know about that. And no one did. So I reached out to the foster mom and thought I would just mention some of my concerns. And she immediately responded to my text and said, "Oh, well, everything you're seeing is because of abuse. Did no one tell you? Emma was abused. She just recently had a broken leg, and like within the last couple weeks." And I was like, "No, nobody told me that this infant had broken any bones." Which I felt like was really inappropriate because you need to know how to handle a baby if they just had fractures. So I didn't reach out to defects at the time. Jonathan and I just kind of watched her. She had a couple of other issues going on. Beautiful baby and a very, very happy baby. Very happy baby. She just suffered with constipation really bad, and she would spit up often, after eating her bottle. Well, I think it was when they left. They were only here 5 nights, and Aria, the 3-year-old, at the time she was 3, she was super delightful, just a very happy little girl. She was timid when she first arrived at our home, and she was a little shy, but she just was so happy. She was happy to do anything. She was in a good mood. She liked to dance. She liked to sing songs, swim. She was a really good eater. She loved to eat everything that we ate, a lot of healthy stuff. A lot of times foster kids don't want to eat anything healthy. They specifically want like chicken nuggets or French fries or pizza. She never asked to watch TV. And we don't watch a lot of TV at all. And we never turned it on while she was here. And she never requested that. So that was interesting to me. She was just happy Jonathan pointed out she could play by herself. She could play really well with our other children. She was just very content. When they left on that last day, I wrote a synopsis to the DFACS caseworker just of our time with the girls, that it went good. Here were our concerns for Emma. And the response I got was really weird. It was the opposite of what the foster mom had said. She apologized for not telling us that Emma had fractures. She said she's sorry she didn't do that. And she was appreciative to the insight on Emma and that they were seeking medical evaluations for her. And it just seemed so weird because the foster mom had told me what you're seeing is abuse. And then the caseworker was like, "Oh, thank you. We're looking into medical issues with her to see what's going on." So that seemed weird to me. And it kind of piqued my interest to look up the parents on social media, which I've done a lot with kids normally in our home full time. I like to look to see whose child is in my home. Especially personal reasons. Years ago, we needed to do that just to kind of protect our family of what child was in our home. And when I got on there, I was just kind of shocked to see. It was very easy to search their names, and I immediately found a mother pleading for help for her baby, very concerned that something was wrong with her baby, and that instead of getting help for her daughter Emma, they were taken from them. And so, of course, this piqued my interest to keep reading more of the story and to go back to when this all happened in June. And I just scrolled back and read from the beginning just to see what all this family had been through. And things just weren't really adding up. And for example, I could say, if there's something going on medically, why is she on Facebook asking for help and talking about it? Wouldn't DFACS be getting the help that the baby needs? So I finally decided, I talked to Jonathan, he agreed that I should call the mom, Tucky. So I called her. And it was kind of awkward because I don't know her at all, but I just had her girls in my home and I wanted to hear her side of her story. And she listened to me talk to her about the girls, and she immediately started crying and was asking about their overall health. And I mean, almost immediately she was just worried about Emma. Was Emma okay? Was she showing any signs of anything? And we had made ourselves available to her to let her know that we were sorry this was going on, and we felt like some things weren't happening properly according to DFAC's policy, just after talking with her. We made ourselves available. There was an upcoming court hearing that was going to be in October, and we offered to go and to testify if needed, and it turned out that we were asked to testify. And to be honest, John, when you hear of a child in foster care, the first thing everybody thinks is, oh, these people did something bad. That's why their kids were removed. And so there's a lot of different levels of reasons why children are removed. And we've always done foster care with the mindset that we would like to keep the bond between the parents or the family and the child, if at all possible. That's always been important to us. And I was just, after talking to the mom, realizing that was not happening. And when we saw it for ourselves at the 3-day adjudication hearing in October, we were just kind of blown away by the behavior of DFAC's employees. It was not of anything we had seen before. We've been in court a lot, and it was just rude behavior. It was a lot of condescending behavior. It was just mean talk. It just seemed like nothing I had ever been part of in court, to be honest. It was very surprising. And what was most shocking is, well, in my heart and in my gut, we felt like this family was innocent. When we went to the 3-day hearing, there was zero evidence that these parents did anything to their baby. Zero evidence. They have nothing. All they have is that this baby did indeed have lesions, fractures on her ribs and on part of her leg. But when they did these x-rays, they also found out that Emma was very deficient in vitamin D. So it's so much to go into.
Yeah, I want to throw in there that this family, the parents, which live together, are happily married, have an older daughter, noticed the swelling of their baby's leg. And their daughter already had an appointment, so they brought her with her. They called and said, hey, can we let Emma get seen also during Aria's appointment? And they were like, sure, bring her at the same time. So they did that, said, we noticed her leg is swollen. What do you think's going on here, doc? The doc then says, well, it's time to go get some x-rays. Let's have that looked at by CHOA, which is Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. And so the parents drove their baby over there to try to find out what's going on with the leg. And whenever they start finding the fractures, within 2 hours, the child abuse pediatrician has ruled that he believes it's non-accidental trauma. So we don't have a report on this family by a caregiver or a daycare or anything like that. These parents brought their child to their doctor, wanting to know what's wrong with their baby's leg, and they end up with their children removed from them hours later.
Yeah. Listen, I don't know. I mean, you guys, again, you foster kids, you do the respite side of it, everything else. I'll be honest. I don't, as a father of 2 kids myself, now they're both adults now, but if I'm taking my child to the hospital because clearly there's a medical issue, and the first conclusion that they jump to is abuse, it's, you're going to have to peel me off of somebody. I don't know. It would be very hard for me to have a calm demeanor. And when you know as a parent that you have done nothing to harm that child, and the first accusation is, oh, they must be beating the tar out of the kid, I'm going to be pretty upset. Now, I have to ask, I mean, besides the obvious, the trauma of a family pulled apart, these accusations, how have they handled this? Have they done it with some kind of grace that would kind of bewilder the rest of us? Like, how can you be this calm when a state agency or a county or city agency is doing this to your family unnecessarily?
Yes, this family, I can't tell you how many people have met them, either at our church, met them at court hearings. Matt and Tucky are so calm and so kind. There's nothing in anybody's report from DFACS, from law enforcement, from hospitals that can say anything negative about their demeanor. Nothing. They've never even raised their voice. I mean, they are so calm and happy. Tucky is one of the happiest people. Even going through this dark, horrible time, she has no problem asking me how I'm doing with a smile on her face. You can see a smile when I'm talking to her on the phone. I can see her smile through the phone. They are delightful. And you mentioned something, and I've seen a lot of comments because this has gone viral on the internet. And I've seen a lot of parents say things, kind of what you were saying. And I know YouTube has weird censors and things, but where parents are saying, well, they're over my dead body. Is anyone going to take my kid, especially when I know I'm innocent? Not going to happen. And as a parent, I too agree with that statement. The problem is when you're standing in a hospital and you are worried about your baby girl, 12 weeks old. Emma was only 12 weeks old. She had no bruising on her body. She wasn't crying. She wasn't in distress. And when you have a problem going on, you're scared as a parent. And in the beginning, I don't think a lot of parents realize they're being interrogated. If people are not familiar with a child abuse pediatrician, they need to become familiar because they're at a lot of big hospitals in every state. There's only like 400 nationwide. And they act as a police officer, except they don't read you any rights. But everything you say to them is used against you, no matter how innocent you are. If you don't have a story to what happened, like in this situation, they don't know what happened to Emma. How did she get these rib fractures? How did she get this leg fracture? There's no bruising on her. She's not in distress. And the parents are looking at each other. I wasn't there, but I've heard them tell the story, just confused. We don't know. How did this happen? And then they're asked, have you dropped the baby? No, we've never dropped the baby. They start thinking, well, I wonder if when I did the bicycle exercise, because Emma's belly, she had a lot of gas. And I wonder, the father's thinking, did I lean on her? So did Arya, our older daughter, did she fall while dancing in the living room and we didn't see it? These are parents trying to come up with what could this be? But the hospital and these doctors used that against them for not being consistent with their story. And they literally turned that against the parents. So that's one thing people have to understand. I know everybody is like, I'll take anyone down who tries to mess with my kid. But when you're in a hospital, how many doctors, nurses, law enforcement, and child welfare people are you willing to take down? Like, how are you going to do that?
No,
It's
yeah.
easier to say
Yeah,
than to do.
I just, again, I commend them. I have to commend them on, I mean, of course, they don't want to do anything that's going to make them look abusive. I mean, if you're thinking about it, you're being accused of stuff, you want to stay calm because if you get too agitated, they're like, oh, we got him now. So you want to remain calm. But at the same time, I don't know. I'd probably blow the blood pressure cup up, up because I would be so ticked off that I'm being accused of something that I've done. And again, I would think that these pediatricians that deal with child abuse would question maybe, okay, we have a fractured leg or lesions. I think Jason mentioned that the she has a cupped rib cage. How can you have this much stuff and not any other mark on the body?
Right.
That, to me, that's one of the most baffling things of everything that you've mentioned so far. That's insane to me that they don't call that into question.
Yes, and honestly, the parents were also concerned about her skull. And when they took her to the pediatrician was like, oh, her head's fine. I'm going to focus on her leg. But she had CT scans done that showed, and even in the records, talked about having swelling, minor swelling. I mean, I don't think that's normal. I've never heard of someone having minor swelling to your skull, and that's not some kind of issue. They also gave her high doses of vitamin D when they discharged her. So the girls were sent home with their maternal aunt and uncle. Once DFACS got involved, law enforcement got involved, parents were told within 2 hours, you're not taking your girls home. So go pick a family member, and we're sending your girls with a family member. Now, another thing people need to understand when they hear a baby's been abused, I think we all go somewhere in our head and we paint this picture. So people can paint this picture. When they brought this baby in, the hospital wrapped her leg in an ACE bandage and gave her children's Tylenol. That was what they did. It's like something you could have bought at CVS Pharmacy or Walmart. That's what the hospital did. So people need to realize she did not come in beaten, battered, and bruised. This was just a baby with a swollen leg, and no one even did anything about her skull. They didn't even worry about that. And then they prescribed her with high doses of vitamin D, which, as far as I'm concerned, is not going to help an abused baby. Her levels of vitamin D were low. And at the October hearing, there were 2 medical professionals that could attest to what could be going on with that. You know, they named metabolic bone disease. They named rickets. Jonathan could probably speak better to the cupping of the ribs that a layman can see and Choa refuses to recognize.
Yeah, the cupping was what a geneticist pointed out that he could see. He says that he's asked to do skeletal x-rays all the time, like take a look at a full profile and look for things. And even though he's not a board certified radiologist, and he said you can see, and he like marked on his report what they call cupping of the ribs, which is where the ribs have lost bone density, and so the ends of them look like a little ladle or a spoon shape. And once he said it, a layman could see it, and they said, well, why didn't the pediatric radiologist at Choa noticed that? And he said, I don't know how they missed it. They just need a refresher course if so. But
yeah, so it's not like they don't have any answers. There were answers, and so many people have said, well, you have to err on the side of caution. You can't just believe parents who say they're innocent. I agree with that because we've been foster parents. I know kids get abused. I know kids are neglected. But there is an opposite side to that. You can't go around and just take kids out of homes because you think something's going on. You need some kind of evidence to go on. This family didn't even have a background check done on them. They didn't even check in at their home. They didn't go visit their home. It was in the middle of the night when the police followed Matt over there, but the kids had already been removed. So nobody sat down with this family and asked about their medical records, if the parents had any medical things going on, did they have any bruising issues? Nothing. They just went to abuse. And there are other ways. They could have still put the kids in a safe home, and they could have done a welfare check, background checks, to see if this family had ever dealt with anything criminal. There's just so many ways that you can keep kids safe. And now they've just done so much damage to this family. I'm sure Jason touched on it, that Matt and Tucky can't even speak to each other. They have a no contact order that's been in place since June. They've been married 12 years.
Yeah. Now I want to ask you one thing real quick, because Jason brought this up last week. Is it true that whoever heads up DFACS in Georgia she's had to testify? There's been hearings about how she's running this agency. Like, there's other questionable things going on with this, with the head of this organization and how they behaved. I mean, as far as, that goes, has that had any bearing, or is that being brought up in court that, like, excuse me, not only are we being falsely accused of abusing our kids, but there's a history here of this agency, kind of being terrible people at times. Are they bringing that up in court at all, or is that being left out and they're just focusing on other things?
Yeah, they've not brought that up. We've brought that up to DFACS ourselves. Um, we've brought it up. We've had an in-person meeting with a regional director and 2 county directors, or 3 county. Because it was a regional,
2 county and 1 regional.
and 1 regional. And nobody really, everyone hems and haws over that. Nobody really has anything to say. But, you know, Candace Brose is the head director over DFACS in Georgia. And yeah, there's been some allegations, and there's been subcommittee hearings by John Ossoff's office that 1,800 children within 4 years have gone missing, 1,800 foster kids. So kids who were taken from their families and placed into state care have gone missing.
Whoa. 1,800?
1,800 over a 4-year, like between 2018 and 2022. And that's just the children that were reported.
And, okay, this is, I'm going to go on a little tirade here. Please bear with me. But this is the problem with appointed officials. You can't vote. If voters heard about a woman like this running an agency, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, clearly irresponsible, needs to go. But when they're appointed and they have favorability with God knows who else, you know, in a realistic, logical world, this person would be removed. And if this was a private sector job, they'd be out. You're gone. Good day. You lost 1,800 kids, and you're just brushing it off like it's no big deal. They'd be gone. And this person is holding on to their position. I'm glad I don't live in Georgia. I guess I should say. I don't know. That's horrifying. Well,
yeah, but I mean, everybody needs to look into their own state, because we've been foster parents for 13 years, and we didn't know about this until it all started in October this year. Well, last year, when OSOF started this subcommittee. And I've read from other sources that it's multiple states. This is a really big problem here in America, that CPS is removing children. The problem is, like, people will say that these are runaways. They come up with all kinds of excuses. But what not everyone knows is some of these kids, when you can't find a foster home to put them in, they hotel kids. And they put kids in hotel as young as 10 years old. And they have one aide, an adult, who stays at the hotel with them. And then sometimes these kids, they do run away. Some people talk about these kids being trafficked. There's just, you don't miss 18, all 1,800 kids didn't run away. I mean, that's just crazy talk.
Yeah, because I mean, if 1,800 kids get away from you, clearly no one is paying attention to the kids. They're off at the bar drinking, and the kids are disappearing. And they're like, "Oopsie, lost another one. Write it down." To be so, I don't know. It's baffling to me how they could just kind of just shrug it off. I mean, they would, if that was, if these people normally have kids of their own. If that was happening to their kids, they would be incensed. They would be so angry, you'd have to peel them off somebody else. And if it's somebody else's kids, well, that's just a system. I mean, some people literally, that's their attitude. Well, that's a system. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure right at this point, nothing is better than what you're doing right now.
Yeah, we've really had our eyes open to how DFACS as a whole works, and I'm not impressed. I mean, we had this problem. When you think kids have been wrongfully removed from their parents' care, and we've never had to worry about that. We've had about 30 kids come into our home. We've never said this before. So if you have foster parents who say, wait a minute, something might be going on that shouldn't, let's check into this. Instead of doing that, and instead of checking and running more tests on this baby, they're doing the opposite. They're keeping the parents in the dark. They're keeping them from doctor's appointments. They're not being honest. They'll take days, even weeks, to answer a question. They tell them, oh, you can't have contact with the foster parents. That's against privacy. You can't have their phone number. That's not true at all. A foster parent could easily have a relationship with biological parents. We've done them so many times. Now, a foster family can also say, I'm not comfortable with that, but you find other ways to communicate. But DFACS has no oversight. We're realizing that this one problem we have, I'm thinking in the beginning, oh, we're just going to go up the chain of command. No, it does not work that way. They can do whatever they want. You can say, you've broken 4 policies in just 1 week. They literally don't care, and no ramifications happen to them. I can tell you that because we had a meeting. We went through a federal law that was broken. We went through so many policies that were broken. Partnership parenting guide that was broken. All of these things they're not adhering to, and they don't care, and nobody gets in trouble for it. So it's really a mess. You can go, we've tried to contact every political person in our area and in their area in our state. And I have to tell you, it's so disappointing because they don't care. You Are the Power has been so helpful, so amazing. Parents Behind the Pinwheels is a really great advocate as well for parents who are going through this horrible nightmare. This is not an isolated case, and it's not just Georgia.
Well, okay. I'm going to say something, and please don't take this the wrong way. I'm going to need a blood pressure pill after this, and I'm not even on blood pressure medicine. I'm pretty healthy, but I'm going to need a blood pressure pill because I know you guys can't see me. I am seething right now because of Jason warned me, hey, you're getting ready to go down a rabbit hole here, and you hear that a lot, and you're like, okay, no. Even the things that I've heard. Again, from that podcast, Jason, and up to right now, I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was this bad. But let's move along with the story because I also heard that the kids were placed with an aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
And then some really stupid things happened there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the aunt and uncle, they had them with them for about 5 weeks. One morning, while doing a diaper change, the family noticed that there was some strange redness on her feet. I've seen pictures of it. It's hard to explain. They don't look like typical bruises, like you or I have ever seen. It was just a redness discoloration, almost like under the skin, but not really on the skin. But anyway, so they called a pediatric specialist that she had seen for her bones, like to check on the fractures after being discharged. And they said they didn't have any availability. So they called the caseworker and said, hey, we want to, get figured out what's going on with Emma. What should we do? And the caseworker says, take her to CHOA, get her checked out there. So they did what the caseworker says, and they took her there. And while there, they never diagnose why or what the redness is. But during, while they're there, it's noted in the hospital records that one of the caseworkers says, perhaps they let mom come over and abuse the baby. And that's all it took was this idea out of nowhere with zero evidence that takes these little girls away from their loving aunt and uncle.
Literally rip them from their arms.
Forget trying to find out what's going on with this little girl. And they end up putting them into a foster placement. So things just keep going downhill while medical things keep popping up.
And Emma the baby stayed in the hospital for another 6 days. No one's really clear on that. We were really confused why she was in there for 6 days. Parents weren't told. And when your kids are in foster care, you're still supposed to be told when your kids have anything going on. You're still supposed to give permission to medical procedures being done. The parents found out that in October, they found out that in July, when the aunt and uncle brought them, Emma stayed in the hospital for 6 days. She was put on a feeding tube because this baby was a breastfed baby. And when she was taken from her mom, she struggled with bottles. The mom was pumping her breast milk, getting it to a friend who would get it to the aunt and uncle because of bond conditions. The mother couldn't speak to her own sister, would get the breast milk, and they had to buy a bunch of different bottles to see what Emma could take. So when she's in the hospital, they don't have breast milk at the hospital, so they go straight to formula, and they end up having to put her on a feeding tube. And the parents were never even notified. They found out in court months later. That's crazy to me. I mean, you still have rights to your kids. You know, I mean, you still should be told those things.
Yes, unfortunately for some people, especially when it comes to bureaucracies like this, sometimes the frame of mind they get into is once kids are placed into foster care, they now belong to the state, heart, body, and soul,
Oh, yeah.
and we don't care what you think. This is how it goes, and not following, their own rules. They some of these people get on a power trip. They exist. They're out there, freaking everywhere, doing whatever they want,
Yeah.
and then clearly there's no accountability here. The one other thing I want to ask too, because this is one of the things that was Jason. I asked Jason about last week. I heard on the podcast, which really it really ticked me off. But apparently, I guess the dad was doing a supervised visit, and the 3-year-old ran behind him, and the caseworker that was there smiled and said, "Oh, you're a racist?"
Yeah, so with that, when that caseworker came into the room to end the visit, Aria ran behind Matt and held onto his legs and was peeking around his leg, looking at the caseworker, afraid to go with her. Matt was very taken back because he had never seen his daughter behave this way. So he was very confused, and visits were really sad anyway. It was very difficult for him to spend time with them, explain where mommy was, because at this time, kids are not seeing their mom. And yeah, the caseworker, according to Matt, who has been completely honest throughout all of this, said the caseworker just had a cruel, evil smile on and asked Matt, "Do you think this is a race problem?" And Matt is like, "Okay, my wife is part Thai. Like, we're not a racist family. Like, I don't think this is an issue. Well, how can a 3-year-old be racist?" Like, he was so taken back by that. And they wanted to bring it up at court at the last court hearing in October, but caseworkers didn't show up to court. 2 caseworkers were on this case. Neither showed up to court. And a week before today's court hearing, a new caseworker, the supervisor, became the caseworker. So they don't have to answer to anything. All these broken policies. Do you know in October, when the parents were at a 3-day adjudication hearing, that somebody, knowing that Matt was in court, they went and picked these little girls up and brought them to a visitation center to have a visit with their dad while he was at court, knowing he wasn't going to be there? It destroyed Aria. It broke her heart. No communication. None. They do not communicate with one another at all. And they don't care. And when they get in trouble, when they do something, there's no, you don't get in trouble for it. They can just do whatever they want.
Yeah, there's literally no repercussions for any bad actions taken by any of these people. And not only is that, I know, I can't imagine what Matt and Tookie are going through with this, because I'd probably lose what little sanity I have left would be gone. Again, knowing that you've done absolutely nothing wrong, you've caused no harm to your kids, and you're being put through this amount of hell because, A, you have irresponsible people in this agency. The medical professionals aren't asking questions of, connecting dots from XYZ. It's just going straight to abuse. Now, if now correct me if I'm wrong. Weren't some of these medical facts brought up in a court case, and the judge just kind of disregarded all that information?
Yeah. Yeah, that was part of the 3-day adjudication hearing. And it was just beyond shocking because they talked about the cupping. They talked about her little skull, that the bones in her skull were like separating. And they talked about the calcium that's being taken from her bones. And they both, we had a forensic pathologist. I say we, the parents, had a forensic pathologist and a geneticist. And both said there needs to be more testing. Like, Emma has something going on. You don't have that low of vitamin D and not have something going on. She needed more testing. And at that time, nobody would hear anything of it. And yeah, that's how it went. That during that hearing was the judge said she really only wanted to go with the child abuse pediatrician, even though when he came in, he had no x-rays and no documentation with him. It was very shocking. Almost like pretend, like it just like, how could this happen?
People that know me well know that I can really talk a lot, and this is the most speechless I've done. I don't know how many podcast episodes. This is the most speechless I've been listening to a story, because again, we're all a lot of us are parents here, and hearing this, the roller coaster of emotions that you feel hearing about, again, unnecessarily putting people through hell because of irresponsible people and bad actors. Now, again, I guess we have to come to grips with, in almost every case like this, whether it's this family or, like I was talking to Jason last week about the guy who the city of Atlanta bulldozed the wrong house. He gets a letter in the mail thinking it's an apology or a check, but no, it was a bill for the demolition. Even though, and instead of saying, you know what, we screwed up, this judge, this pediatricians, these people at DFACS, they're all just, they don't want to say they screwed up because someone's going to hold their feet to the fire. So now, instead of just being a human being and saying, you know what, let's rectify the situation now. No, you know what? Instead of doing that, we'll just drag you through lower pits of hell instead of being just a rational human being and saying, you know what, this has been a horrible mistake. They're going to continue this torment.
They will never, ever admit. I have learned that. They are not going to admit to anything. And it's just disappointing that they wouldn't at least do more testing, to agree to do more testing. Like, if it's abuse, what will it hurt to do a third party? The parents wanted something outside of CHOA. They did not want the same accusing hospital, obviously, running testing. They wanted to find their own independent place to do genetics tests to figure out what was going on. And you're right. They have been put through a very much a living hell, because if people can understand, you have a husband and a wife happily married, okay? 12 years, happily married. They were married 7 years before they had their first daughter. And Aria has had nothing. They had a full skeletal survey done on her that same day at CHOA. Everything came back fine. So has no problems. They have nothing going against them for how they parent Aria or her health. And now you have, not only are you accusing them in 2 hours of abusing their baby when they're the ones asking for more tests, however you want to look at it, the court system, law enforcement, they give them this no contact order, and it just only adds to it. So this husband and wife can't even come together to console each other, to talk, to decide on lawyers. How are they going to pay for these things? They're not even able to come together to mourn when they find out their baby is sick. It's disgusting. I cannot believe, and I'm so confused at how a husband and wife can have a no contact, and I just keep being told it's a Forsyth County, Georgia thing. Like, they can just do that. And I just think that's a huge huge right of ours that's being hurt and abused. And nobody really seems to care about that.
Yeah, it seems like everyone is covering everyone else's butts at this. I mean, that's the way
Yeah.
they're acting. We all have to come together and cover each other's hind ends, because if if they find out X, Y, or Z, or if we're taken to court, God forbid, we get the wrong judge, we're all screwed. Because in my opinion, the doctor should lose his job, the judge should lose his job, the head of DFAC should lose her job, and the caseworkers should lose their jobs. There should be many people unemployed at the end of this story, so that they cannot harm other people. Because, man, if this happens one time, there's a pretty good chance it's going to happen again to somebody else. Because, again, no accountability for their actions, and that just is, I
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this, John. There are multiple families here in Georgia. You might be seeing some of that possibly next month, that coming out in a news article. 12 families, 11 families working with a reporter, all from the same accusing hospital. And then there's 3 families that I've come in contact with over the last few months whose lawyers don't want them to talk about it, but they're also from the same accusing hospital. So this is a problem. This is not like, well, they made a mistake and they don't know how to fix it. No, I think there's a vindictive, evil, corrupt problem going on. And it would take a lot to convince me otherwise. Because when you bring up all the things that DFACS is doing wrong, even just morally wrong, treating this family so rude, and ignoring their culture, ignoring so much about this family that you're not supposed to do when kids are in foster care, and nobody cares. When we were at that hearing in October, there was the case supervisor who sat down during a break. This is when I knew these people were evil. She sat down 2 rows in front of me and sat with an intern. So this is the break during court, it's not in session. And she gives her a quick rundown of why we're there that day. And she says, it's basically a done deal. We've already started the TPR paperwork, which is terminating parental rights. She said that day for me to hear. I am absolutely positive of that. She said it with a smug smile on her face. Those kids, this happened in June. They were taken from their aunt and uncle in July. And in October, she's bragging about how she cannot wait to terminate the parents' rights. That's disgusting. And the way she said it was so gross and so inappropriate. Yeah, they should lose their jobs, 100%.
Holy smokes. I don't I'm so just baffled. My brain is smoking right now. I don't know how to this is well, before I go any farther, Jennifer, anytime, like when these articles come out or anything else, please, if you could text me links, send me links, because as this story comes out, I want to continue to cover not just the Hernandez family, but what comes out of this with these 11, 12 families out of the same hospital. I would like to cover this more in depth and shed some more light on it for sure, because that's good God Almighty. And the thing is, you would hope that between this family we're discussing tonight and those other 11 to 12 families, you would hope for some very, very strong disciplinary actions to take place. My fear is slaps on the wrist, because everybody's going to come together and play this, well, let's hide this, and then we'll grovel and beg and please forgive us. We thought we were doing the right thing, sort of, bread and circus are going to put on, and at the end of the day, they're not going to get their just desserts. That's my fear, because we see it so much. But yeah, I definitely want to keep tabs on this, so feel free to send me that information.
I will. Definitely. Jonathan can give you a little bit of an update. We did actually have court today. It was an all-day court hearing from 9 to like 4:30, I think. So there is some good news that he can tell you.
Before you just said something about they're going to try to hide this or hide that. I think I'd be at liberty to tell you that we know that CHOA was served with a subpoena that they did not respond with, and they did not provide the information that was requested in it, and they didn't send someone to court today to explain why they couldn't. So to me, that is very suspicious. And I mean, you can make your own assumptions about what that could mean, but everything else with the court hearing went as well as we could have hoped overall. They were really hoping today.
Well, tell them what defects is.
Okay, yeah, really hoping today that the girls could go back home with their uncle and aunt. So that was a big goal we had. And the department, even though CASA and the guardian ad litem, who is the girls' attorney, they have been pro reunification this entire time. The department, however, has been non-reunification for months now. And even though that goes against everything that you can read in the Georgia DFACS manual, reunification is always the goal until there is no other way to go about things. Whenever these children, there's no way that they will ever be kept safe, or the parents are out of the picture, they're unwilling to cooperate. And so they petitioned hard, the attorneys for DFACS today, to keep it a non-reunification case plan for the family. But the judge said that she would not accept that, thankfully, that these girls have a strong bond with their parents, and that she is not willing to go down that route. So that was a huge success. And the department testified that they had received, I think she said 500 emails, this one supervisor herself, from concerned citizens, not only in Georgia, but all over America and in several other countries, asking them to look at this case, rethink what they're doing to this family. And they were not happy about receiving all these emails, and because they're being held accountable for what they're doing, and they're going to have to do their job in the public eye. And we have You Are the Power to thank for that.
And Megan Fox.
Yeah, Megan Fox picked it up. I think she commented in a You Are the Power post and was like, hey, if I can jump in here. And so she has had several
live talks,
live streams on YouTube where she gets the word out and gets some people on the horn. She gets people sending paper faxes, which have a lot of actual effect. So You Are the Power combined with Megan Fox has been a really, really successful combination to we think really sway their opinions.
Yeah.
Because they are hearing from the people that keep them in office.
I will attest to, working a little bit with a grassroots organization here in Missouri on some legislation for the state. I can attest to the power that, literally filling voicemail boxes to the brim where they can't even take another voicemail. We had people send faxes. We have who we call the email queen. She will send an email to every single rep and senator to say, hey, we really need to get this through. I can attest to the power of a lot of human beings coming together and pushing for something that's good and moral and decent. And it does give you a sense of hope, even when you hear these god-awful stories, like about the Hernandez family here, that 500 people. That's the thing. They're not used to 500 people blowing them up about anything, unless they're all owed money and they're like, "Hey, where's my bread at?" Other than that, they're not used to 500 people, blowing up their emails, their voicemail boxes, sending them faxes. As archaic as that sounds, it does bring with it a little bit of gumption, because they're like, wow, these people are so serious that they're sending us faxes through a fax machine on top of it. And that's the thing. People got to get get their minds wrapped around is when you do, and it doesn't matter if it's legislation or a story like this, you use whatever means necessary. If that's phones, if that's emails, if that's face-to-face visits, if that's faxes, however you can get it done, that's what you do, because there, if you make a couple phone calls, they can be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get that voicemail," or "Oops, I must have accidentally deleted that email." When there's 500 of them, there's no way on God's green earth that you're going to deny that you got those emails. All right. For those of you in the KEYK audience, thank you so much for joining me this week. Again, if you'd like to hear a little bit more, please look for the Missouri Liberty Report Plus. You can find that anywhere you get your podcasts. Also, don't forget, Saturday I leave for D.C. When I come back Friday, I'll get to tell you all how I was washed in the communist blood over there, and I'll have to come home and take 20 baths, and we'll talk about probably putting a new water heater in after it's all done. But please feel free to join me next week. I hope that you will, and I can tell you all about my fancy little trip to Washington, being around a bunch of thieves and liars. But anyway, with that being said, have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week. All right, so I don't know how much time you guys have, and I don't want to keep you any longer than you want to be here. But is there any other? Okay, is this you're talking about? You Are the Power. Are you involved with them on any other things besides this specific case? Do you, or any other type of grassroots organizations? Are you guys normally involved with things like this, or this the first time for you guys?
No, we just saw a family that great injustice was being done, literally being railroaded, and
it was my sister.
Their kids being fast tracked out of their hands.
Yeah, and
that's the only reason we got involved.
We were day in and day out trying to, just the two of us with a couple family members of the Hernandez family, some friends, just constantly talking every day about who we should email, who we should call, what we need to do, starting petitions. We were doing so much, and it was just didn't feel like enough. And it was my sister who actually told me one day about You Are the Power. And to be honest, when she called me, I was not thinking anything great was going to come of it. It was just, to me, like, okay, this group, sure, I'll email them. Or Mandy was going to email them for me. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I did not put a lot of faith and hope into it. I had been exhausted, to be honest, just like every single day trying to do something new to help. And it was really exhausting. It was kind of lonely to try and fight the system with just a handful of people. And when You Are the Power got involved, it was just, I don't know, it was so great to have this group of people who genuinely care and who take time out of their day. John, we have like Zoom calls. We were having them Monday through Friday every night for weeks. We took off for like Christmas. And other than that, we were constantly having calls, and we were trying to figure out what we could do, action calls, and who needed to do what. And it finally started feeling like we were getting somewhere. And I've mentioned Parents Behind the Pinwheels. Holly Simonton runs that page, and it's a sad page. It's not like a feel-good place. It's nothing but stories like this. And I had reached out to her when this first happened to our family, and I was like, how can I help this family? Like, it's not happening to me, but what can I do to help? And she's been a great friend, and she advocates for a lot of parents going through this nightmare. I just feel like your viewers shouldn't just take our word for it. Everybody should. You can get on Parents Behind the Pinwheels and read all these stories. You should start looking into child abuse pediatricians and see their connection with the state. See if they're contracted with the state. Are they paid by the state? There's a lot of money being handled with foster kids. I know this from being a foster parent. It's sad. There's a lot of retaliation that's happened. I don't know if Jason mentioned it or not, but our foster home was closed by DFACS not long after we went to the trial. We had never had any problems with any kids in our home. I told you we have adopted 3 children. There's a need for foster parents. I see it all the time looking for foster homes, and there's a need. We used to get emails daily about kids that needed a home, and they decided to close our home. So these same people we went to ask for help, and instead of helping and looking, they try and shut you down.
That, retaliation, a cowardice move on their part, and it's a classless, petty, childish move. It's because, some people just can't take any criticism about how they do their job. I don't know if they think they're better than everybody else, and their word is the gospel, and if you go against it, well, then you're just evil, or you hate all the stuff that gets tossed around to people all the time, which normally when they do that, that means they have no facts to back them up, so they have to resort to some kind of retaliatory move like that, because they know they're in the wrong. That's the only thing. And to try to, I don't know, dissuade you and make you feel like there's no hope, they go to these petty moves, and
they know there's no oversight.
Right.
So even if you're like going to go to the top, it's like they think they're laughing at you. They think that they can just do whatever they want and literally get away with it. And I guess they can until people start standing up to it. And that goes for all other states. I guess they can get away with it and do what they want to do. They're very good. A lot of these lawyers that have parents going through this, the reason they tell them don't talk, do not go to social media, keep quiet, their answer is because DFACS is very vindictive. You do not want them to retaliate against you. It's like, how much worse can it get when they take your kids unjustly? I mean, you got to talk about it at some point. People are scared to when their lawyers ask them not to. And I do understand that, because there is a level of fear there. But you have to stand up for what's right. These are kids. You're talking about innocent families and kids. So how can you sit by and say, well, it's not my kids, not my problem? Everybody knows a child. Everyone loves a child in their life. So even if your kids are grown, are you going to have grandkids soon? Does your neighbor have kids? Do you have nieces, nephews? Everybody has a child in their life that they should care about. And you should spread awareness to this, to know that it's not an isolated situation.
Right. And I want to add to what you said, because I know Jason and I talked about this a little bit last week, and that is, if you're going to get in this fight, what Jason and Spike have said, Jason on the show, what Spike has posted on Twitter, if you're going to get involved, if you're going to make phone calls, be very wary, just be aware of what you're saying to them, because we've watched people like this turn themselves into the victims, and we don't need to add to their cause. We want to help the families or any of these people involved, but we also don't want to give the other side any ammunition to go into the media and like, oh my God, look at how vicious these people are. Look, they're calling us names and everything else, and we're just caseworkers. We're just trying to do the right thing. So if anybody out there within the sound of my voice is going to get involved, be very careful how you word your emails, what you say in a phone call, what you put down in a fax. Don't put anything down where they can play the victimhood card, because by God, they'll do it in a drop of a hat.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, Jennifer and Jonathan, thank you just so much for taking the time out to come on with me and talk about this. Like I said, I think I'm pretty healthy, but I might need to take a little blood. I don't even have any blood pressure medication. I might have to go to the doctor after this episode and say, hey, can I just need one pill, doc. And he's going, what did you do this evening? Well, I had a conversation. But
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on, and I also appreciate your heart in all this and the fortitude that you've shown, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would have gone a little bit down the road with this and thought, you know what, and would have backed off, and you've stayed with it the whole time. You've stuck by this family, and I know everybody in my listening audience will greatly appreciate that. I know I do. So I have to commend both of you for your actions. And I know this, you have children in your home and you have jobs and everything else. And to take that extra time for somebody that was a stranger to you up until now, that says a lot about both of you as people. And I really do commend you for that.
We appreciate you saying that. I just think it's the right thing to do, and we don't regret a single second of it. And we're thankful to all the people. You Are the Power, Megan Fox's viewers, so many people coming together and sending those emails, because obviously we didn't send 500 emails. People have joined together, and I think most people really do care when they hear this, and I'm so thankful for that. Thankful to you. Thank you for letting us come on and talk about this.
Absolutely, and the invitation is open as this thing progresses. If you get some really great news, and you don't have to come on for very long, you come on, spend 15 minutes one Friday evening, give us an update when something. It could be negative or positive, but when there's something big that happens with this case, if you get the great resolution that you're looking for, that everybody's looking for in this case, hit me up. You can come on, and maybe we can get everybody or give everybody some really joyous news in this, dark times we seem to dwell in a lot of times. I'd be happy to have you back on to give us some good news.
Yeah, we would love that. Thank you.
Well, you guys have a great weekend. Blessings to both of you. Again, you guys are phenomenal people. We need more folks like you, Jennifer and Jonathan. So yeah, have a great weekend. And take care of yourselves, and I hope to talk to you again real soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
All right, folks. Well, that was Jennifer and Jonathan Williams. It just sounds weird to almost say my name along with, just saying Williams just seems kind of weird. But, hey, whatever. What a positive thing. What a absolutely positive thing to see. It's I don't know. It's so great to hear about these people, what they're doing, how they're doing. And I appreciate them. And I appreciate Jason hooking me up and setting up this interview because, we all needed to hear this story. We needed to hear about it. We needed to get the in-depth details on what this because, what this family's gone through, because too many people think that Child Protective Services is this grandiose thing, and they don't really hear about the faults, the abuses. 1,800 kids come up. Oh, I don't know what happened to them in a 4-year period of time. Most people don't hear about that. So it's good to have people like Jason, Jennifer, Jonathan, and so many other fine folks and some of the other organizations, Parents Behind the Pinwheels, You Are the Power, all these folks, just doing tremendous things. It really gives you hope. Sometimes you start losing hope in humanity, and then you hear stories like this, and it really gives you a sense of hope. Now, Misty Atkins is here. She says HB 1951 is about removing children from homes. It has a provision in it to allow medical doctors to remove kids. This is very dangerous and is referred to as medical kidnapping. Well, let's hope the freedom-minded members of in the Senate and the House here in Missouri can defeat this and get this knocked down. Because the way the medical industry has been lately and everything else, would you trust half these doctors after what we went through for 2.5 years? I sure wouldn't. Let's see. If it says if the parents don't complete their assigned rehab in a short period of time, the kids will be placed up for adoption. It's scary. Yeah, it is very frightening. All right, folks. As you know, tomorrow morning I'm getting on a plane about 9 o'clock and flying out to the lagoon known as Washington, D.C. And I will be coming home Wednesday evening, and I'll be supposed to be getting back to St. Louis about 10 after 8. So Friday I will be on here, if nothing weird happens or, whatever. I will be here to talk about my trip, and maybe in my free time I can look into some of these cases with this, defects in Georgia and do a little digging in. Maybe we'll talk about some of the articles or whatever, some of the information that I can, find while I'm, in a hotel room or whatever, not talking to those people. But I am looking forward to it because I've never been to D.C. I haven't been on an airplane since I was I think 13 years old, 12 years old, somewhere in that area. So it's been a bit. Yeah, this is going to be something that I haven't done in a while. And, I'll get to go, hopefully I get to go out, do a little, take some Ubers, go see some monuments, some historical sites, get some good photos. And if I get some good photos, I'll share those with you as well. But yeah, it should be interesting, and I'm going with a group of some pretty good people. So all in all, it should be a fun trip, except when I have to go up to the Capitol or whatever. All right, folks. With that being said, thank you. I have to thank Jason Lyon for again kind of helping set this up. He gave Jennifer he actually gave me Jennifer's contact information, and thankfully they were able to jump on here with a little bit of good news and really set the table with a lot of good information. And I don't have, you know what? What am I talking about here? Don't be such a crackhead, John. I like to thank everybody who's in the live chat. And I got to make sure as soon as I hit the video that I turn the audio off so I don't hear myself. But I'd like to go in and thank everybody who was here. Wilderness Gal, Gary Ride, Voodoo Queen, Misty. Let's see. We had John Grady, Jason Lyon, Warrior Class 3, Mandy Marie, Ariat Lantum, Almeria. We had a lot of folks in the live chat tonight, very lively. So thanks to all of you who joined me this evening for a very heart-wrenching story, but again, hoping for a positive outcome to this. And not only a positive outcome, but hopefully maybe some real repercussions for who I'm going to call jerks up there in or down there in Georgia. The people that are causing this much pain should not be employed any longer and should not, especially not in a job funded by taxpayer money. And I'll leave it at that because I don't want to say anything where they play the victim card. Just kind of giving you my humble opinion. But again, thanks to everybody who joined me tonight. It was this is 2 weeks in a row of some fantastic guests and information and some things to dwell on. And to know that there are, even more organizations out there than we knew about that are doing outstanding things. And that's something to be thankful for. All right, folks, that's going to do it. Again, I appreciate each and every one of you. And we'll see you all next week right here on the Missouri Liberty Report.
Want more freedom? It starts with you. Join us next week on the Missouri Liberty Report and find out how you can get involved to take back your state.
All right, thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I appreciate all of you that joined in. And again, a big thank you to Jason for kind of helping. Well, he not kind of helping me, helping hook this thing up. And I was so happy to have them on. And as heartbreaking as it was, we definitely need to know about this, and we need to definitely spread the word about what has happened and the horrible things going on, which will happen all across this country. But they more than likely, a very good chance it happens in Missouri. It happens in a lot of places. So something we need to be cognizant of, and something else for us to really fight back against. So we don't have to sit and hear about more families being torn apart unnecessarily by people who think they're levitating above the crowd, if you will. But anyway, all right, folks, take care of yourselves. Have a great weekend. Can't wait to be back on with you next Friday right here on the Missouri Liberty Report. Take care, everybody.